Introduction. If you don't believe in yourself, nothing works the way it should. That's the truth nobody wants to hear, but everyone needs to understand. You can have talent, intelligence, opportunity, all of it, but if deep down you're doubting who you are, you'll sabotage yourself without even realizing it. You'll hesitate when you should act. You'll stay silent when you should speak. You'll wait for permission when you should have already moved. Most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they don't trust themselves enough to truly try. This isn't about positive thinking or empty affirmations. This is about rebuilding genuine self-belief from the ground up. You're going to learn how to stop depending on external validation to feel confident. You'll discover how to think clearly, act with purpose, and finally show up as someone who knows they deserve better. If you've ever felt stuck, uncertain, or like you're living below your potential, what follows isn't just information, it's a reset. Chapter 1. Your value isn't up for debate. You don't need anyone's permission to believe in yourself. You don't need a crowd cheering before you feel worthy. And you certainly don't need validation from people who haven't walked one step in your shoes. Yet that's where most people go wrong. They tie their self-worth to how others treat them. They wait for someone to say, "You're good enough," before they feel like they matter. They wait for approval of their dreams, their pace, their choices. But here's the truth, it's a losing game. Your value doesn't rise or fall based on how others see you. It doesn't disappear when someone ignores you, and it doesn't suddenly become real only when others recognize it. Your value was always there. The problem is you've been giving other people the authority to determine how you should feel about yourself. Most people who doubt you are struggling to see their own potential. They can't clearly see yours because they're too busy questioning themselves. So if you're waiting for them to validate your worth, you're waiting for something they can't even give themselves. Stop giving others the final word on your value. Break the pattern of constantly seeking their approval. Because here's what happens when you stop: clarity arrives. You stop adjusting your direction to please others. You stop holding back effort just because nobody noticed. That's when everything changes. That's when real growth begins. If someone supports you, great. If they don't, it changes nothing. Your belief in yourself must be the foundation, not a bonus that appears when conditions are right. The moment you give your confidence to someone else, you give them the power to destroy it. And that's a risk you cannot afford. Real self-belief is quiet. It doesn't announce itself or beg for attention. It just moves. It shows up consistently. It stays focused when others drift. It stands firm when others question. Ask yourself, how many times have you held back because you feared what someone might say? How many ideas have you buried because you didn't think people would take you seriously? How many dreams have you postponed because someone called them unrealistic? It's time to stop living like that. You weren't born to impress people who haven't accomplished what you're trying to do. You were born to live your truth, chase your goals, and build a life you're proud of. Chapter 2. Act like you've already earned your own respect. You don't need to wait for a title, achievement, or someone else's recognition to start respecting yourself. You can start acting like the person you want to become right now. Most people postpone self-respect. They think once they hit a certain milestone, then they'll deserve to feel proud. But that mindset keeps you stuck, because if you keep thinking you need to earn your own respect later, you'll keep living like you're not enough today. And that belief shows in everything: how you speak, how you carry yourself, how you treat your time, how you handle your commitments. Respect isn't something you find outside yourself. It's something you build every day through your choices. When you treat your time seriously, when you take care of your health, when you commit to your goals without letting distractions win, that's how you demonstrate self-respect. You stop apologizing for wanting more. You stop accepting things that don't serve you. You know who you are, and you don't need constant reminders. When you start acting like you've already earned your own respect, everything shifts. You set different standards. You stop entertaining people who drain your energy. You stop explaining your choices to people who don't understand your journey. You show up differently, not louder or arrogantly, just grounded. That's not ego. That's self-awareness. That's confidence without noise. Respecting yourself doesn't require perfection. It requires honesty with yourself. You hold yourself to your word. You follow through when you say you will. You don't abandon your own goals. You don't lower your standards because others live with less ambition. People lose self-respect by compromising too often, tolerating too much, and forgetting what they once promised themselves. Every time you break your own promises, it becomes harder to believe you can keep them. You don't need everything figured out to walk with direction. You just need to stop acting like someone who doesn't care. Even on tired days, even when progress is slow, even when nobody's watching, you still show up like you mean it. Real confidence doesn't come from compliments or applause. It comes from knowing you've done what you said you would. It comes from keeping promises when nobody's watching. It comes from knowing you're not pretending, you're living it. Small things matter more than you think. How you start your day. How you speak to yourself when things go wrong. How you handle failure. How you respond to distractions. All of it adds up. Every action is a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. The people who seem strong don't have it easier. They made a decision to carry themselves like they matter. They don't wait for the world to treat them better. They treat themselves better first. If you accept less, you get less. If you walk with doubt, you attract disrespect. But if you carry yourself with quiet strength, the world begins to shift around you. When you act like you've already earned your own respect, you make different choices. You don't chase people who walked away. You don't explain your worth to people who never saw it. You don't beg for chances, you create them. You don't get desperate. You get better. Chapter 3. Push back when your mind says you can't. There will be moments when your mind starts doubting you. Not because you're weak, but because that's what minds do. When they sense discomfort, they seek safety. They look for the easy way out. Your mind will whisper, "You can't do this. You've never done this before. You're not ready." But here's the truth. If you listen to that voice without questioning it, you'll live far below your real potential. That voice isn't guiding you forward, it's protecting you from discomfort. But discomfort is exactly where growth lives. The only way to grow is to push back when your mind says you can't. You don't need to destroy that voice. You need to understand it and challenge it. The difference between people who move forward and people who stay stuck is simple. Some listen to their doubts and accept them as truth. Others feel those doubts and move anyway. That's what builds strength. Not confidence at the start, but movement despite resistance. Winners feel fear. The disciplined get tired. The successful hear negative thoughts. The difference is they don't obey them. When your mind says stop, ask why. When it says you'll fail, ask, "So what if I do?" When it says this is too much, respond with, "Then it's time I get stronger." This isn't about fighting yourself. It's about not allowing your weaker thoughts to run your life. Every time you push back, you take power back. You remind your mind that you decide what happens next, not fear, not doubt, not excuses. Most people wait for motivation to silence the negative voice before they act. But that voice doesn't disappear because you're inspired. It fades when you prove it wrong through action. Every time you move forward despite the doubt, you weaken its grip. You build proof, not fake confidence or hype, but real evidence that you can follow through, handle hard things, overcome resistance. Sometimes pushing back doesn't mean doing something big. Sometimes it means doing the one small thing your mind doesn't want to do. Getting out of bed when you feel stuck. Speaking up when you feel nervous. Finishing that task when you'd rather quit. These seem like small moments, but that's where the shift happens. That's where you break the habit of letting fear run the show. That's where discipline begins. Just because your mind says you can't doesn't make it fact. It means you're about to step into something unfamiliar. The mind doesn't like unfamiliar. It wants control, comfort, repetition. So when you choose to do something outside your comfort zone, expect resistance. It's not a problem. It's a sign you're on the right track. When your mind tells you to shrink, that's your cue to stand up. When it tells you to hide, that's your signal to show up. When it tells you to stay the same, that's your invitation to grow. Think about how many times you've held back because your mind convinced you something was too hard. How many chances you ignored because it said it wasn't the right time. How many ideas you abandoned because that voice said you wouldn't be good enough? Now ask yourself, how much longer will you keep obeying it? You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need the fear to go away. You just need to do the thing your mind says you can't. Walk into that conversation. Start that project. Begin that routine. Show up tired. Start small. Get it wrong. Try again. The more you do this, the more your brain learns something new. Your limits weren't real. Discomfort doesn't mean danger. You can survive struggle. And once your brain learns that, it starts giving you a different voice. Not one that says you can't, but one that says, you've done it before, you can do it again. Chapter 4. Stop negotiating with yourself about what you know you need to do. You know what you need to do. Deep down, you know exactly what needs to happen for your life to change. The problem isn't confusion. The problem is you keep negotiating with yourself about whether you really need to do it. You make deals. I'll start Monday. I'll do it after this situation passes. I'll begin when I feel more ready. But Monday comes and you make another deal. The situation passes and there's a new excuse. You never feel ready, so you never start. Every time you negotiate, you're training yourself to not take your own commitments seriously. You're teaching yourself that your word to yourself doesn't mean much. And that becomes a pattern that infects every area of your life. If you want to build self-belief, you must stop treating your commitments like suggestions. When you say you're going to do something, you do it. Not because you feel like it. Not because conditions are perfect. But because you said you would, and that matters. The negotiation happens in small moments. You set an alarm to wake up early, then when it goes off, you start bargaining. Just 10 more minutes won't hurt. But those 10 minutes matter more than you realize, not because of the time, but because of the pattern you're reinforcing. You told yourself you'd do something, and then you didn't. You proved to yourself that your commitments are negotiable. Do that enough times and you'll stop believing yourself entirely. Strong people don't feel more motivated than you. They just stopped allowing their feelings to be the deciding factor. They decided what needs to happen, and then they do it regardless of how they feel in the moment. That's discipline. That's integrity with yourself. That's what separates people who achieve their goals from people who just talk about them. Stop waiting for the perfect emotional state before you act. Stop waiting until you feel like it. Your feelings will almost never align with what's difficult but necessary. If you wait for them to, you'll wait forever. The decision to stop negotiating is a single decision that changes everything. You decide once, I don't negotiate with myself about what I've committed to do. Then when the moment comes, there's nothing to debate. You already decided. Now you just execute. This doesn't mean you can't adjust your plans when circumstances genuinely change. It means you stop using minor discomfort as a reason to break promises to yourself. Every time you follow through despite not wanting to, you're building self-trust. Every time you keep your word to yourself, you're proving that you're someone who can be counted on by yourself. And that's the foundation of unshakable self-belief. Chapter 5. Remove quitting as an option. When you keep quitting on the table as an option, you'll take it. Maybe not today, maybe not on the easy days, but when things get hard, and they will get hard, you'll reach for that option if it's available. The most powerful thing you can do for your growth is to decide that quitting simply isn't an option. Not as punishment or stubbornness, but as a commitment to seeing things through. When quitting is off the table, something shifts in your mind. You stop wasting energy wondering if you should continue. You stop negotiating about whether this is worth it. That energy gets redirected towards solving problems and finding ways forward. Most people fail not because they aren't capable, but because they leave quitting as a legitimate option. They allow themselves to stop when things get uncomfortable. They walk away when progress doesn't come fast enough. They hit a wall and turn around instead of figuring out how to climb over it. Each time they do that, they train themselves to believe stopping is acceptable. That giving up is justified. That it's okay to break promises to yourself when things feel heavy. But that mindset destroys self-respect. It weakens belief. And it makes the next quit even easier. You need to train yourself differently. When the thought of quitting enters your mind, that's when you double down. When you feel tired, you keep showing up. When you feel discouraged, you find another reason to push. When nothing seems to be working, you remind yourself why you started. This isn't just motivation. This is self-discipline. This is internal power. This is you proving to yourself that no matter how it feels, quitting is not your story. When you push through something difficult and emerge on the other side, you're not just finishing that one thing. You're building identity. You're creating evidence. You're developing trust in yourself. You're proving, I might slow down, but I don't stop. And that belief carries into everything else. You approach challenges with more strength. You handle rejection with more maturity. You face setbacks with more clarity, because deep down, you've already decided, I don't quit. Stop treating every struggle as a sign you should walk away. Some things are difficult by design. Some goals take longer than expected. Some progress looks invisible for a while. That doesn't mean it's not working. It means you're being tested. You're being stretched. You're being prepared for the level of strength required to sustain what you're building. You need to hold yourself to a higher standard when it comes to quitting. Each time you keep going, even just a little further, you're reinforcing the belief that you don't quit on yourself. Not this time. Not ever again. It doesn't matter if your pace is slow. It doesn't matter if your results are small. What matters is that you're still moving. That you're still showing up. That you're not making quitting a comfortable choice. Because once you make it comfortable, it becomes familiar. And once it's familiar, it starts showing up everywhere. You quit workouts early. You quit goals halfway. You quit projects when they get tough. Over time, that builds a life filled with abandoned potential. The person you want to become is on the other side of the challenge you want to escape. You don't get stronger by quitting. You get stronger by pushing through, even when it's slow, even when it's frustrating, even when it's painful. Everyone has energy on day 1. The people who keep moving on day 50, day 100, day 200, that's where the difference is made. You don't need to win today. You just need to refuse to quit today. You just need to take the next step, no matter how small. That step builds momentum. That step builds identity. That step is how you keep your promise to yourself. Chapter 6. Keep going when nobody's checking on you. Most people stop when no one's watching. They slow down when there's no one to remind them why they started. They wait for someone to text, call, or check in before they take their next step. But if you want to build something real, something lasting, you've got to keep going even when it feels like nobody notices. There will be days when no one checks on you. No one asks how you're doing. No one shows up to motivate you. And if your effort depends on their support, your consistency will break the moment silence shows up. You need to be your own accountability. You need to say, I don't need reminders. I don't need applause. I don't need someone watching over me. Because this isn't about being seen. It's about becoming who you said you'd be. Your goals, your dreams, your reasons, that needs to be enough. Not the attention, not the approval, not the company. The truth is, the more serious you get about growth, the quieter it gets around you. People drift. Texts slow down. Encouragement fades. It's not personal, it's just life. People are caught up in their own world. If you keep expecting them to check in, to follow up, to stay with you every step, you'll end up resenting people who never made you promises. You'll use their silence as an excuse to slow down, stop caring, stop pushing. But that's not who you are. That's not how strong people build anything worth having. You're responsible for your own consistency. You're responsible for the discipline that keeps showing up long after motivation disappears. You don't get to take breaks every time attention disappears. You don't get to delay your growth because no one asked how you're doing. The work still needs to be done. The actions still need to be taken. Your future still depends on what you do when no one's checking in. Real confidence comes from knowing you didn't wait for anyone. You didn't need an audience. You didn't need a push. You just kept going, day after day, quietly, privately. That kind of effort builds something inside you that no one can take away. It's called internal strength. It's called self-respect. It's called showing up without an invitation and still giving your best. Be careful with the voice that says, "No one cares, so why should I?" That voice will ruin your momentum. That voice is weakness trying to make excuses. People who build something great aren't the ones who were constantly encouraged. They're the ones who learn how to keep moving in silence. They kept writing. They kept learning. They kept building. Even when messages stopped. Even when calls stopped. Even when support faded. They kept going because they knew it was never about other people's attention. It was about their own standard. If you rely on others to keep you committed, you'll always be vulnerable to disappointment. But if you choose to keep going regardless, you take full control. You create momentum that doesn't break when circumstances shift. You become steady. And that steadiness becomes your advantage. While others take breaks waiting for reminders, you're still moving. While others question whether anyone notices, you're still focused. While others wait for motivation to return, you've already built the habit of showing up without it. No one owes you encouragement. No one is required to check in on your progress. You can't hold back your potential because people didn't support you the way you imagined. Some of the most powerful growth happens when you keep going through the silence. When you keep working though no one's watching. When you keep taking steps forward with zero validation. That's when it gets real. That's when it counts. Anyone can work hard when people are cheering. Real strength is built when you're the only one clapping. Chapter 7. Look yourself in the eye and say you're ready. There comes a point where you have to stop doubting and start deciding. Not based on how prepared you feel. Not based on how much you've figured out. But based on the simple truth that nothing changes until you say it's time. You could spend years waiting for the right moment, waiting for fear to leave, waiting for the plan to feel perfect. But it will never come. The truth is, you won't feel fully ready. And that's not a reason to wait. That's a reason to begin. Growth doesn't show up before you commit. It shows up after. You unlock your next level by stepping into it, not by waiting for it to come to you. The most powerful way to take that step is to stand in front of the mirror, look yourself in the eye, and say it out loud. I'm ready. Not because everything is clear, but because you're done holding back. You're done waiting for signs. You're done letting hesitation control you. You're done watching time slip away while your potential stays stuck in your mind. Saying those words doesn't make everything easy, but it changes something inside you. It puts you in motion. It shifts you from thinking to doing, from doubting to deciding. You've got to stop letting fear speak louder than your future. The fear will always be there. The questions will always be there. But you have to learn to look past them. You don't need to be fearless. You need to be willing. Willing to try. Willing to learn. Willing to get it wrong. Willing to move forward instead of standing still. When you tell yourself you're ready, you're really saying, I'm willing. Willing to face this. Willing to figure it out. Willing to become who this journey requires me to be. You've been carrying ideas, dreams, goals inside you for too long. You've been thinking about what you want to do, what you want to change, who you want to become. But thinking alone doesn't move the needle. At some point, you've got to face yourself and say, it starts now. Because if you don't, you'll keep passing time doing things that don't lead anywhere. You'll keep watching others grow while you stay stuck in preparation mode. And deep down, that's where frustration comes from. Not from failure, but from knowing you haven't even tried. There's something powerful about saying those words out loud. It's not about sounding confident. It's about committing. Saying, I'm ready, means you're stepping into responsibility. It means you're done blaming the past. It means you're not looking for shortcuts. It means you're ready to take ownership of your life. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop waiting for fear to disappear. Look yourself in the eye and decide, I'm ready. Then prove it with your next action. Chapter 8. Protect your mind from negative influences. Your environment shapes your beliefs more than you realize. The people you surround yourself with, the content you consume, the conversations you engage in, all of it either builds you up or tears you down. If you're serious about believing in yourself, you need to become protective of what you allow into your mental space. You can't spend hours consuming negativity and expect to feel positive about your potential. You can't surround yourself with people who constantly doubt and complain, then wonder why you feel discouraged. Your mind is like soil. Whatever you plant in it will grow. If you plant doubt, criticism, and negativity, that's what will flourish. If you plant possibility, growth, and determination, that's what takes root. This doesn't mean you ignore reality or avoid legitimate feedback. It means you become selective about whose voice gets access to your thoughts. Not everyone deserves a say in your life. Not every opinion is worth considering. Not every piece of advice is meant for you. Some people will project their limitations onto you. They'll tell you something can't be done because they couldn't do it. They'll discourage you from trying because your ambition makes them uncomfortable. You have to learn to recognize those voices and filter them out. This also means being careful about what media you consume. If you start every morning scrolling through negativity, drama, and bad news, that's the lens you'll view your day through. If you constantly watch content that makes you feel inadequate, jealous, or behind, you're programming yourself to feel that way. Instead, be intentional. Consume content that educates, inspires, and challenges you to grow. Follow people who are where you want to be. Read books that expand your thinking. Listen to voices that remind you what's possible. Your belief in yourself is fragile when it's new. It needs to be protected and nurtured. That means creating an environment, both physically and mentally, that supports your growth rather than undermines it. Spend time with people who believe in growth, who challenge themselves, who take responsibility for their lives. Distance yourself from those who make excuses, blame others, and stay stuck. This isn't about being arrogant or thinking you're better than anyone. It's about recognizing that you're trying to become someone new, and that requires different influences. You can love people from a distance. You can wish them well without making them your daily company. You can respect their journey while protecting your own. The voices you listen to most frequently become your inner voice. Choose them carefully. Chapter 9. Celebrate small wins to build momentum. One of the biggest mistakes people make is only celebrating major accomplishments while ignoring the small victories along the way. They wait for the big promotion, the finished project, the major milestone before they allow themselves to feel proud. But by doing that, they miss out on the momentum that comes from recognizing progress. Believing in yourself isn't just about seeing the finish line. It's about acknowledging every step that gets you closer to it. Did you show up when you didn't feel like it? That's worth recognizing. Did you have a difficult conversation you'd been avoiding? That matters. Did you stay consistent for a week straight? That's progress. When you acknowledge these small wins, you're training your brain to recognize that you're capable. You're building evidence that you follow through. You're creating positive associations with the work you're doing. This isn't about being satisfied with mediocrity or stopping before you reach your goals. It's about fueling yourself with recognition so you have the energy to keep going. Think of it like this. If you only focus on how far you have to go, you'll feel exhausted. But if you also notice how far you've come, you'll feel encouraged. Many people give up not because the goal is impossible, but because they never stop to recognize their progress. They feel like they're running on empty because they never refuel with acknowledgement. Celebration doesn't have to be elaborate. It can be as simple as pausing to say, "I did what I said I would do today." That means something. It can be taking a moment to journal about what went well. It can be sharing a win with someone who supports you. It can be simply feeling satisfaction instead of immediately moving to the next thing. This practice rewires your relationship with effort. Instead of seeing discipline as purely difficult and draining, you start seeing it as something that produces results, even small ones. And those small results compound. They build confidence. They make the next step feel more achievable. They remind you that you're not just trying, you're actually making progress. If you want to believe in yourself more strongly, start noticing what you're already doing right. Start recognizing the moments when you chose growth over comfort. Start celebrating the fact that you're still in the game. Because the people who go the distance aren't the ones who never struggle. They're the ones who recognize their progress even in the struggle, and use that recognition as fuel to keep moving forward. Chapter 10. Remember that self-belief is a practice, not a destination. Here's something most people get wrong. They think self-belief is something you achieve once, and then have forever. They think once they feel confident, once they accomplish something significant, once they arrive, they'll finally believe in themselves permanently. But that's not how it works. Self-belief isn't a destination. It's a practice. It's something you build, maintain, and rebuild throughout your life. There will be seasons when you feel strong and certain. And there will be seasons when doubt creeps back in. That doesn't mean you've lost your belief. It means you're human. What matters is that you know how to rebuild it. You know how to look at the evidence of what you've done before and remind yourself, I've overcome challenges. I've grown through difficulty. I've kept promises to myself. The practice of self-belief includes the moments of doubt. It includes the days when you don't feel strong but choose to act strong anyway. It includes the times when you have to consciously redirect your thoughts from what you fear to what you're working toward. This is why everything you've learned in these lessons matters, not just once, but repeatedly. You'll need to stop seeking validation again and again. You'll need to push back against your mind's doubts regularly. You'll need to keep going when no one's watching, not once, but many times. These aren't one-time actions. They're practices that become part of who you are. And that's actually good news. Because it means you're never stuck. It means even if you've lost your way, you can find it again. Even if doubt has gotten loud, you can quiet it through action. Even if you've broken promises to yourself, you can start keeping them again today. Self-belief is forged through repetition. Through showing up consistently. Through choosing yourself over and over. Through proving to yourself, again and again, that you're worth the effort. Some days it will feel easy. Other days it will feel impossible. Neither of those feelings defines your worth or your capacity. What defines them is your commitment to the practice. So understand this, you're not trying to reach a point where you never doubt yourself again. You're building the strength to move forward even when doubt is present. You're not trying to become someone who never feels fear. You're becoming someone who acts despite the fear. You're not trying to achieve permanent, unshakable confidence. You're developing the ability to rebuild your belief whenever it's tested. And it will be tested. Life will challenge you. Failure will visit you. Criticism will find you. Setbacks will occur. But if you understand that self-belief is a practice, you'll know what to do. You return to the fundamentals. You stop seeking external validation. You push back against negative thoughts. You keep going when no one's watching. You look yourself in the eye and say you're ready. You protect your mind. You celebrate progress. You remove quitting as an option. You practice. And through that practice, you become someone who doesn't just hope they're capable, someone who knows it, because they've proven it to themselves time and time again. Conclusion. Believing in yourself isn't about arrogance or delusion. It's not about thinking you're perfect or never experiencing doubt. It's about choosing to trust yourself enough to try. It's about moving forward even when you're uncertain. It's about keeping promises to yourself, protecting your mind, and refusing to quit on your potential. Everything in your life changes when you decide that you matter. When you decide that your goals are worth pursuing. When you decide that your growth is worth protecting. When you decide that you're done waiting for permission. You don't need anyone's validation to begin. You don't need perfect conditions to make progress. You don't need to feel completely ready to take the next step. You just need to choose yourself. Today. Tomorrow. And every day after that. That's how you build unshakable self-belief, not through one big moment, but through 1,000 small choices that say, I'm worth it. I'm capable. I'm not giving up on me. So start now. Not tomorrow. Not when things are easier. Now. Look yourself in the eye and make the decision, I believe in me. Not because it's easy. Not because everyone agrees. But because you've decided it's true. And then prove it. One day, one choice, one action at a time.